Welcome to the nonprofits. We scour the internet searching for proof of deities and the supernatural. Despite not finding information to convince us of the existence of any god, we're here to tell you what we have found. So buckle up because the show is starting now. Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Cynthia, and today I am joined by some fellow infidels, blasphemers, heathens, and non believers. Starting to my far left, I would like to introduce our local pagan on the panel, Miss Helen Greene. How are you, darling?
I am wonderful. Hello, everybody. Hello, Internet. And just so you know, magic exists in your heart.
Aww. I feel so Disney-fied right now. It's great. Well, next up is another fellow blasphemer, and I'm so happy that we're finally working together. Hello, Mr. Jimmy Jr. How are you?
Hello, Cynthia. Hello, panel. It's great to be here. How are you guys doing? I hope well. I'm doing great and really excited. Let's get this show on the road.
That's right. I love it. I love it. And last but definitely not least is our special guest for this day. We have a new face, the cross examiner. Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. I've watched ACA content for years, and I am super excited to be working with all of you.
We're excited to be working with you as well. I was just saying to the panel in the background that, sometimes that when we're doing some of these shows, especially when we're talking about the law, I'm like, I need a lawyer. I need a lawyer. And everyone commented, says no one ever. So I am really happy that you're here. And won't you just tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm an atheist and I'm an attorney. Some would say a recovering attorney. I don't practice as much anymore. But I've started a podcast and I'm looking to volunteer my time to help examine the intersection of religion and government. And I thought, what a better way to volunteer than to offer to help out here.
And you know what? And we are very grateful that you have decided to do that. And I'm so excited to hear your take on these articles. So, with that being said, guys, you ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, before we actually get into it, I have stuff to say. Like, this is a show of the product. This is actually a show that is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promoting of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And today we're going to talk about some things. In our first segment, we're going to talk about Texas wanting chaplains in public schools. Next segment, we have a WTF Florida. Florida teachers beside I cannot say that name, but they're really upset about these draconian laws that's going on in Florida. Next up, we have Columbus drag queens, rather, thinking they're haters. And finally, we're going to wrap it up with a strange but true with a new theory that may explain our existence. And as with all of our shows, links to today's topics and the news we discuss are available in the description below. And as a reminder that if you want to come into the show prepared, you can check out the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take it to segment number 1 and the cross examiner. This is all you.
Great, thank you. So first we're dealing with an article entitled Texas Plan to Put Chaplains in Public Schools is Latest Move to Inject Christianity. It's published in the Dallas News by Talia Richman and Allie Morris on May 11th, 2023. The article actually covers 3 different bills. One is hiring chaplains, one is mandating 10 commandments in the schools. And finally, the third one is mandating a prayer period or Bible reading or other religious text reading in the schools. So I was wondering what people's take on this was. Obviously, I look at all three of these and think, before this current court, these would all be an easy, no-brain, unconstitutional. But now, after the decision last year that got rid of what's called the Lemon test that the conservatives hated, we have to re-examine this. So what are your thoughts, Jimmy?
Yeah, thank you. Initially, my thought is that we're going backwards in Texas again. And the so-called party of freedom and small government once again proving their agenda to the country by seeking to enact these laws. I don't have to tell you that this is a violation of the constitutional principle where we shouldn't be experiencing a state-sponsored religion. I almost wonder, though, if there are some loopholes here for this argument to potentially be exploited by the religious extremist conservatives. And I also wonder if there's precedence in the United States military, considering the chaplain corps, which is literally paid to be a source of religion, as well as a counselor to those experiencing some kind of mental health crises or needing mental health assistance. So first off, as far as the loophole is concerned, and I'm glad that we have the cross-examiner here to kind of bounce these ideas off of. But Texas is not technically the state. It's the government, so the same rules should apply. But in a strict constructionist view of the Constitution, what the Constitution actually refers to is the federal government in the country. I'm not actually sure if we've heard this argument before, but that kind of just pops to my mind. I do know that under the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, no one religion can be advanced or inhibited by the government. So for any of these kind of Christian values to seep into the schools, it really opens up a door for other religions as well. Right. So this might be an ideal time for the Satanic Church or maybe some other pagan religions, et cetera, to kind of try and put their own chaplains in place. I know in the military, we only have, and I say we because I am an active member of the military. I maintain an affiliation. I was in the military for 13 and a half years before I made my recent transition back into academia. And I'm starting a new job teaching at the collegiate level. But I do have some experience with chaplains, and I do know that there are only 4 religions represented in the chaplain corps. So they kind of alienate a lot of others. And I think maybe there is an intent to prop up one religion here by schools in Texas and alienate others. And so these are kind of my initial thoughts. There's the argument of legal precedence. You know, that's kind of the one I'm making. And I always chuckle when I hear chaplain and health professionals kind of being conflated into the same thing, because I think anyone, and I may be a little harsh here, but this is kind of the place for it. Anyone who is actively indoctrinated to thinking that 2 penguins waddled from Antarctica to get on a 500-foot boat in the Middle East that could hold 8 million animal species is probably not in the right frame of mind to give me mental health advice. And then if you believe that it's okay that God raped a teenager so she could give birth to his son and that he would later murder him, I don't understand how healthcare and chaplaincy really kind of cross. But anyway, there are some arguments here that I have. One, these children are nothing but pawns to grow a religious base for people who want to use Christianity to seize and retain power, offering solutions to weak and vulnerable in exchange for money and support. I think that's pretty typical of how religion is successful. I think that they use children to do that. I think it's unconstitutional, plain and simple. Lawmakers in Texas are fully aware, but do not care. The Republican Party, I think, just as corrupt as probably the Catholic Church, and they're using each other, or Christian institutions in general, kind of using each other to prop each other up and support each other's interests. And then kind of a radical theory I have, but I really, at this point, don't think there's any reason why churches shouldn't be paying taxes. They've already kind of infiltrated our government, right? I think that they're kind of the argument that churches, if they're taxed, can, support political candidates and influence our government is kind of a weak one. So anyway, I think we're already there. Those are my initial thoughts. Thanks for my little spiel, giving me my spiel. Helen, any thoughts on everything I just said or anything I just said?
Our resident
I
penguin.
I mean, it is one of those things that those of us that have to experience these things are very passionate about. Like, I live in Florida, and I'm again reminded, like, Texas and Florida are in this weird dick wagging contest going on of who can be the theocracy first. And I'm just over here going like, whoa, Constitution, y'all, Constitution, y'all. So it's a little frustrating when you're experiencing it firsthand. And also, too, like, I want to point out that I'm an atheist. I think all religion is silly. All of it's silly. But I do want to recognize that if you introduce one religion into any form of government, whether it's a school, a Veterans Affairs building, whatever it is that is supposed to have that separation, as soon as someone that walks in from a different religion or non-religious or just a secular person, they're going to feel isolated. They're going to feel differentiated, and they're going to adjust themselves in certain ways to get the things that need to happen done. Or it gives people, they're like, oh, I have special privilege now, and to treat people as others.
Yeah.
And that's my major concern with this. And luckily we found out before we were recording that this didn't pass. And I think that's really, really great. But it was because of technical errors. It wasn't because it's absolutely unconstitutional.
Mhm.
But I'm glad that there's been a little chink in the system, so other secular groups can maybe, get some legal stuff going on, and maybe prevent this from going any further, because they're going to reintroduce it.
Yeah.
They are. So it'd be nice if we had a little bit more time. What do you think about that, Cynthia?
Yeah, I think that they probably will, but I'm really curious to get the cross-examiner's take on this, because like we paid him the big bucks to be here, being a lawyer and all. So
Yeah, I got 10 times as much as you guys got.
All the atheist money we make.
All the atheist money.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God, like this lousy
all right. So first, to issue a correction, a mild correction. I think the bill that didn't clear was the 10 Commandments one, which is
Right.
like very important. As far as the chaplains go, I think, Jimmy, your insight was spot on. There's 3 historical areas that the Supreme Court has allowed governments to pay for chaplains. That is in the military, that is in prisons, and that is in legislatures. And they've argued the reason they gave, and none of those were viewed under the Lemon test, which they got rid of last year. So that logic probably is still going to hold. And with soldiers and prisoners, the court said, hey, we're uprooting these people from their communities, and they will be denied of these services. So it makes sense to do this. And with soldiers and legislative chaplains, they said, we've been paying for that since before the Constitution, so obviously it was okay with the founders. So that's the logic that was applied there. We can differentiate this Texas bill. Students aren't soldiers, they're not prisoners, they're not legislators. They have not been uprooted from their community.
Right.
They have access to religious services. As they say, you can't swing a dead cat in Texas without hitting a church, right? So also
Poor dead
children.
cat.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Depends on the cat. So, and more to Jimmy's point, children are more impressionable than soldiers and legislators and prisoners. They are less likely to object to inappropriate instruction. And due to laws mandating participation in school, they're captive audience. They're ripe for the picking, so to speak. So a side note, historically, the Supreme Court in many cases has cited an event before the Constitution was even created, where Virginia tried to pass a law to pay for Christian teachers. And who but Madison and Jefferson rose up against that bill and wrote extensive documents. Madison wrote his famous memorial and remonstrance against religious assessments, and Jefferson pushed for a bill that was called the Bill Establishing Religious Freedom. And the Supreme Court, over time and time again, starting as far back as 1879, have cited that as to why we don't pay for religious instruction, which let's face it, that's what's going to happen with these chaplains. One last point on this. Australia had started this back in 2011, and it's been a disaster. You get everything you expect. You get complaints that chaplains are proselytizing. Chaplains are distributing literature saying that condoms don't work and being gay is bad. They even had a professor say a student came to her and said that she talked to a chaplain who had about her eating disorder, and the chaplain said, well, you're just hungry for the Lord. So that's what Texas is trying to do. It should be a home run, but this court, of course, is a mystery to everybody. So we're all watching this. What are your thoughts, Cynthia? Any final thoughts?
Oh my God. First off, I'm like infuriated that they're going to tell a little person that you're hungry for the Lord, so don't eat them chips. That I would have slapped them with a bag of chips. But yeah, I'm going to keep my violence to myself. But you know, there was a couple of things actually that I had saw in the article that, you know, was intriguing to me. Specifically, a couple of, well, actually, it was a couple of quotes that disturbed me. One of the ones was the scale of transformation and spiritual renewal resulting from the school chaplain program might be described as revival. The website reads, millions of young people and adults in their lives are going to be won to the gospel of Jesus Christ and disciples in the name of Jesus. Discipleship involves training to win and disciples others. You know, I would really love to ask the person who actually came up with this particular, you know, bang on thought pattern. Is there any empirical evidence that shows a school chaplain or this put God back in schools actually stopped, I don't know, mass shootings?
None.
Thoughts and prayers, Cynthia. Thoughts and prayers.
Okay. To the contrary, one important fact about this law, and I will read it for you. The last sentence of the first section of the law says, quote, a chaplain employed by or volunteering, because you can volunteer, under this chapter is not required to be certified by the State Board for Educator Certification. So they don't even have to know how to teach. They don't have to know about mental health, and they don't have to know how to teach.
So that's another issue that I have with this, because like I believe like when I was just reading, actually this is like the third quote that really disturbed me was from a Representative Gold Hefner, who is a Republican from Mount Pleasant, said the plan is about giving school districts every tool that we can in the toolbox to combat mental health problems and other crises. And again, if you don't have to necessarily have psychiatric training or train to be a school counselor or train to even teach, how are you giving any tool in the toolbox for these specific people to be able to combat mental health problems and other crises? Can someone answer that question for me?
Ask Texas.
I'd
love to hear.
Ted Cruz, Cynthia. Just go ask Ted Cruz and see what he has to say.
I love to hear. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
They're probably making it worse. I mean, giving resources to students who are struggling that will not help them or are not trained to help them could potentially make their plight exacerbated. You know, and so that's kind of a dangerous move, in my opinion, to put non-professionals in the realm of children and call it mental health.
Yeah, I agree. I was just saying this, and then if you don't mind, Cross, I would love for you to give us some final thoughts on this.
Absolutely.
You know, I was a teacher once in my life. I have many occupations, and I just know that like the school that I was teaching at was an alternative school. This is like the last time for these children to shine. And we had and I know that for me specifically, it was a hell of a time being there, because in some cases I knew that what these children needed was a bit more, um, was more trained professionals, especially when it came to therapy, like, and also school counselors. And because like a lot of these kids were wards of the state, they were, they experienced violence and crises in their lives. They, you know, some of them had parents that were in prison. There's different things of that nature that, you know, they were coming into the school system already traumatized. So a lot of times this is supposed to be a safe space for them, where they're able to, you know, not only learn, but be able to speak with licensed professionals to kind of help them work through their issues that they're dealing with, whether they're environmental or also internal. And to think that any professional who would call them, you know, that's a chaplain, only credibility or was just, I've been ordained minister. I took some classes about Bible reading. Is the qualification that we're going with. And of course, like, even though, like, Jimmy, you mentioned that the military only has like 4 religions represented, and I'm pretty sure the majority of them is Judeo-Christian. You
Yes.
know, yeah, okay. Bang, how did I guess that? And I know nothing about the military except for my dad was in it. So I'm just thinking that we see overwhelmingly, especially with this whole push about getting the 10 Commandments into classrooms, that the represented religion is going to be Christianity. Let's just keep it a buck.
Mhm.
And I hate that they would even just think of, and as you guys pointed out, that, you know, chaplains are in prisons, and military are around adults. They've already, you know, can choose whatever religion that they want to be, but, you know, children are impressionable. And that's the part that really makes me just so disgusted. And I'm going to be quiet now. And if you would, the cross-examiner, please, you know, give us some of your final thoughts about this, and then we'll go ahead and move on.
Sure. I'll just respond to a couple of things you said, because you're all spot on. So the most recent thing about you asking what percent of the counselors or the chaplains would be Christian, let's look at Australia. 97%.
Jeez.
97%, and the Australian Christian population represents 64% of their population. So again, we know what's going to happen. You're going to hear lots of arguments from the politicians that, oh, this is non-denominational and they're just there to, we know why they're doing this. Okay. But to Helen's point and your point about the impressionability of kids, I wrote up a little experiment that I might have done if we got into depth on the period of prayer bill, but I decided not to do it, and now I'm going to do it again because it's spot on to you. So we know that the Lemon test that went away last year was a test about the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause, and the supposed tension between those two clauses. But there's another clause of the Constitution that Jimmy mentioned, which is the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Amendment. There's papers out there from a lot of professors saying lawyers aren't using that argument enough, and they need to start doing it. And it's going to be definitely applicable in the period of prayer bill that they're trying to do, where you can opt out if you want. But back in 1948, the court struck down a very similar law where you could opt out, and they did it on First Amendment grounds. But I'm viewing it as this is separate but equal 2.0. This is Brown versus Board of Education. So what I'd like to end on is just read the operative sentences from Brown versus Board of Education, but replace the words concerning race with words concerning religion and see how that holds up. And I hope the Texas courts are listening. I'm going to write their opinion for them right now. So I'm just going to read that real quickly. This is what the court said in Brown versus Board of Education. To separate children from others of similar age and qualifications solely because of their religious beliefs generates a feeling of inferiority as to their status in the community that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely ever to be undone. This effect of this separation on their educational opportunities was well stated by a finding in the Kansas case that they're reviewing, where they said segregation of religious and atheist children in public schools has a detrimental effect on the atheist children. The impact is greater when it has the sanction of the law, for the policy of separating the religious from the irreligious is usually interpreted as denoting the inferiority of the irreligious group. A sense of the inferiority affects the motivation of the child to learn. Segregation with the sanction of the law, therefore, has a tendency to retard the educational and mental development of irreligious children and to deprive them of some of the benefits that they would receive in a secular school system. That's what Texas courts should say to this.
You know, talk Supreme Court Brown versus Board of Education to me.
That's Cynthia's new kink.
Yeah.
It very well may. The 14th Amendment may be the tool that we use.
Right. Speak that legalese to me, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
All day.
All day, every day. No, that was great, and thank you so much, panel, and also especially to you, cross examiner, for actually bringing that into this conversation. It would be really nice if, I don't know, courts would go by precedent that was already set about a lot of these things years and years ago. But I digress, and I'm going to digress to thanking our veteran and our new viewers for getting us over the 12,000 subscriber hump. We're almost at 13,000 people. We're really super close. So if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, could you please get on that like right now? Like, it's just a matter of hitting the button that says subscribe. And once you subscribe, you can like this video and like all the other videos. Just go back into all the nonprofit videos and just go like. And then you can ring the bell so that you will always know when a new nonprofits episode premieres, like every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Well, no. Right now we're Central Daylight Time. But then we'll fall back and there'll be Central Standard Time. Just say Central, okay? And you know that. But you know that, right? Right? Just shake your head. It's very good. And then share the link to our channel with your friends, your family members, your co-workers, the neighbor guy you don't like, the neighbor guy that you do like, the neighbor guy who still has not given you back your lawnmower. You can go over there and say, hey, neighbor guy, may I have my lawnmower? And by the way, can you please go ahead and watch this video and subscribe to this channel? They would like it a lot. And we can do all this so that we can help fundraisers for the ACA. Speaking of the ACA, are you aware that the Atheist Community of Austin's programming is available in podcast form? Well, you should be. So check out the Atheist Experience Network, where you can find all ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to episodes, the nonprofits, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, and the Atheist Experience, and even some of our archive shows, so you don't miss a single episode. Yes, that is right, dear friends. You have our permission to binge by unholy edict. And with that being said, let us go to segment numero duno, or doso. That's not the word. Helen, just take us into the second. Yeah, I know I'm being silly, but go ahead, take us into the second segment.
So this article is a great article by The Guardian, written by Stephen Greenhouse on May 13th of 2023. And this is an article about the point of intimidation, Florida teachers besieged by draconian laws. Now, I suggest you read this article, because not only does it affect us in the state of Florida, this is going around in a lot of other states in the country. So this is a very important point. We have to talk about how these laws are directly affecting the people that are at the front lines. So I'm going to take this to Jimmy, since he's my fellow Floridian, I would like to get his opinion on what's happening in our state.
Well, I'm going to try not to fire off on this one, like I did on the last one, because reading these articles, it's really easy to get overwhelmed with, like just discussed, more attacks on the children. And, it's obvious that the government in Florida think that children are an easy target to kind of push their religious agenda. And it's something that we should all be very well aware and combating to the max extent that we can. Calling what teachers are doing in schools today woke is really just kind of the pot calling the kettle black. Or excuse me, not woke, my bad. Calling it grooming. The religious institutions are the experts on grooming, right? And to get children to believe horribly grotesque concepts, to include keeping or remaining silent when they're experiencing sexual abuse, is the ultimate grooming, right? And we know that the church historically has been a really big perpetrator of that, probably the biggest. And so I think DeSantis and company, are not really kind of being honest with what they're trying to achieve. There's a lot to unpack here. It's the religious undertones that are trying to seek into the schools again, but it's also the people on the right trying to suppress what is being taught in schools by calling it woke when it's really just history, right? It's something that we all need to be aware of, and there's no point in trying to curtail our curriculum to maintain this kind of Southern pride, this Southern ego. So those are my initial thoughts. Wanted to see what the cross-examiner had to say about that.
I agree with you. I think what struck me when I read this is the reliance by the conservative movement, the Christian nationalist fascist movement that's taking over this country, on what we would call in the legal profession, to be polite, counterfactual evidence, like, evidence that's not exactly agree with them. They just lie about it. That's what they do. When the story said that when DeSantis signed the Don't Say Woke bill, as it's called, he said, quote, "No one should be instructed to feel shamed because of their race." That is not happening. There's zero evidence presented anywhere that there's any teacher saying you should feel ashamed of your race because of your heritage. None. Mm-hmm. What is actually happening is that schools are teaching the plain facts of history, and those facts are not the rosy, shining city on a hill story that the conservatives were told when they're growing up, and that makes them feel bad. Mm-hmm. And to crib from a few good men, they can't handle the truth. Who are the snowflakes now, right? That's the kin. What else isn't happening? Trans people are not coming for your kids. What is happening is pastors and priests are. We just had a report yesterday out of Illinois. Thousands of kids were molested by the Catholic Church in Illinois. Last month, Baltimore, 600 or more kids. What else isn't happening? Young kids are not getting transition surgery. What is happening is Christian parents are sending their gay children to the torture that is known as conversion therapy. Right. All of these things, what they sell you is not what's happening. It's just like there are no elections being stolen. What is happening in Texas? Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick had to pay out $25,000 to a Democrat after he offered reward for evidence of election tampering. And the Democrat said, here you go. The Republicans are doing it. So, they just lie, cheat, and steal. And the amount that they get away with is quite stunning, quite frankly. I understand totally if teachers want to get out of Florida. I would if I were them, but it might create this positive feedback loop of, well, education decreases. Now you have a generation of kids who don't appreciate critical thinking, so they support more of these bills. So you have fewer teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my take on it. I'm sure you have something to say, Cynthia.
Yeah, actually, to just to bounce off to your point, that the last point that you made, I did happen to look in the article when we talked about they actually have a teacher shortage in Florida. I believe that, if I'm trying to see specifically, I believe that it's over 5,000, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they have like a teacher, the teacher shortage right now. And it's kind of crazy that you have, and a lot of these teachers were talking specifically about how they're not really sure how to teach certain things because they're concerned that they'll be dinged, what they say will be too woke, or it will be, I may say gay. Like if a student comes to me and says I have these particular feelings that I am, that I'm attracted to, the same sex that I am, we can't talk about that, even though that I would hope that if a person that you trust would be in an authority position, would be like a teacher, to talk about these particular things with them. But they can't, because they might get into trouble. Or if one of the things that I was even reading, specifically when we're looking at the don't say the stop woke bill, and as you mentioned, Graham, the whole thing about no child should be ashamed to be of their race. But if you are purposely taking African American history out of high school classes, or you have to teach it a certain way, where we can mention Jim Crow, where we're just going to gloss over it in the way that the Daughters of the Confederacy wanted to do it when we presented those McGraw-Hill books back in the day. You are teaching another racial group that they're irrelevant to the entire American experiment. And recently I wanted to talk about specifically what when it comes to Florida. Oh yeah, and this is what I wanted to say previously. Yes, they are 48th in teachers' pay, and they are suffering from a shortage of over 5,300 teachers. So these people are already overworked and underpaid, and now you want to put a bit on what they teach as well, and that's insane. But the main people that they are attacking with these particular draconian laws, and thank you for saying besieged. I could not say besieged to save my life. I was like, beside, like, oh my God, I went to college. And but one of the things that I and I keep saying this every time that I see yet another horrible thing coming out of Florida, is that the main people that are under attack in Florida are LGBTQ people, women, and Black people. And I'm not being an alarmist. This is what the laws that have come out are saying to you. If you are a woman, there is a 6-week ban on abortion in your state. And also, in the article, one of the teachers pointed out that if student starts their period and is not sure what to do, she couldn't possibly talk to them about it because of the bullshit stop woke law. If you are Black, DeSantis announced that his administration has abruptly banned high school students from enrolling in a college level course about African American history. And according to news reports, the governor's education agency has disallowed public school students from enrolling in a new advanced placement African American studies course, claiming that it lacks educational value. In its rejection letter, the agency also claimed that the course runs inexplicably, I went to college, contrary to Florida
law.
Words
are hard, Cynthia. Words are very hard.
My gosh. Okay, so they're saying that, begging the question of what contrariness state officials have in mind. By the way, begging the question is a logical fallacy. So, and another bill, Senate Bill 90, requires people to apply. This is another issue that we're having in Florida concerning voting. Okay, because in 2020, in the 2020 elections, Florida Republicans have passed a voting bill saying that it will make this that says that it will require for people to apply to vote by mail more often, and sets new limits on drop boxes. And another Senate Bill 524 increases and creates new penalties for voter registration organizations for things like turning in forms late. And notably, the law creates a new policing unit focused on voting crimes. So if they suspect that you criminally voted, the police can come and scoop you up and take you to jail. Jim Crow much? You know, we talked about the issues with the Don't Say Gay bill. It bans classroom instruction on gender identification and sexual orientation to all grades. And under the original parental rights in education law, which was signed into law last year, instruction on gender identity and sexual orientation were banned for K through third grade students, but teachers in grades 4 through 12 were allowed to offer this kind of instruction if there were deemed developmentally inappropriate. But now that law has expanded and approved in March of this year that all public school students will be banned from learning about these topics unless required by existing state standards or as part of a reproductive health instruction that students can opt out of. And according to the director of communications for the Department of Education, he said, quote, "Today's state board action reaffirms that Florida's commitment to uphold parental rights and keep indoctrination out of our schools." And as Jimmy and cross-examiner has pointed out, who is doing the grooming? Who is doing the indoctrination? When you are putting laws out like this, you are doing the indoctrination. Government in Florida. It's not the other way around. And one more thing that I'm going to mention, and then I'm going to give it to Helen, and we're going to close out, is that there is a big heated debate because the NAACP has signed on with other organizations to actually put out a travel advisory for people who happen to be Black and people who happen to be LGBTQ. They said, go to Florida. If you can go somewhere else, go there. Specifically in the travel advisory, it says that you are not valued. And I've heard all types of stinking, weird things that was happening from the right. I even heard some things like from other Black folks, like, this is silly, the NAACP is irrelevant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, regardless of that, I mean, it's showing in the law that you're not valued. And with that, I'm going to lay my cross down. And Cross, could you go ahead and bring up your cross and examine?
Absolutely. I just had a tiny comment to interject. When you started talking about the hostility that Florida is showing to people of color, we had news today that Amanda Gorman's poem, she's the poet laureate of the United States of America, and she gave that moving poem reading during Biden's inauguration. That poem has been banned from Florida elementary schools as of today. Tellingly, the person who wrote the request to have it banned, the citizen, their request was filled with spelling errors and grammatical errors, and said that the poem was written by Oprah Winfrey. And they've also, of course, requested that other poems be banned, and they were by who? Black female authors. So that's Florida for you. I know Helen has been waiting to say a lot, so I thought I'd pass it over to her.
I'm going to let Jimmy give his spicy take real fast, and then I'm going to go because I have a lot to say.
Okay.
All right. Well, something that I think is important here is that the conservatives in this state, and not just in this state, but maintain power by keeping their base stupid. And I'm gonna just be blunt about that. For every white person who supports them, realizes that they are inherently racist, maybe through no choice of their own, and that they do live in a society that has flourished from the inferiorization of women, minorities, mostly African Americans. That's another vote lost for the conservatives, right? So what better to do than demonize the people that challenge them, by calling them woke, this kind of derogatory term for people who actually want to be awakened. And so I think what we're seeing here is just a power coup, and trying to keep their base uneducated means more power for them. So that's kind of my conclusion on that note.
I agree. Helen?
So, as someone that lives in Satan's butthole, It's very hot and spicy and
Wait a
sweaty
minute.
here.
Wait a
I think you
minute,
need to
wait a minute.
clarify that.
You're right, because that could be fun.
Well, it would be fun if this was a kink for me, but I feel a lot of heat and pressure as a queer person and as someone that is an atheist, and for someone that thinks that, guess what? I don't think things like teaching the reality of history to children is a bad thing, because I've said this before on the show. I learned all about this stuff when I was going through the school system, and I grew up not to be a jerk face. So I'm just going to say it. Now, I do have two kids that graduated. My son graduated in 2019. My oldest graduated in, I'm getting my dates confused. I'm okay. So my oldest graduated in 2019 and my son graduated in 2021. Now, I'm very happy for this, because if they were in the school system right now, I wouldn't want them in the school system. I have friends that have young children here, and they're debating either moving or homeschooling, or trying to find a way for them to get a proper education with tutors or something else. Because if they're put into the school system, they're going to learn that, white people are fine and we never did anything wrong. And I also want to point out something about what's being taught in these school, what curriculum is approved. Japanese American Studies is approved. That got signed as a law by DeSantis.
Sure
so I want to point that out. This isn't just, like general racism and general bigotry. This is selective. Because I'm going to remind people again, when they say woke and they use it as a slur, they're talking about LGBTQ people and they're talking about Black people. Those are the people they're talking about. And if you are a queer person living in my state, I have friends that are trying to figure out how they're going to get what they're going to do. I have friends that are terrified and need to move out. I'm cis presenting. I'm very lucky. I can hide. A lot of people can't. So I'm just very, very concerned living here, and I don't know what the future holds, and I can't help feel that anxiety. So I know that Jimmy wanted to say one more thing real fast, and can we please move on? I don't want to be here anymore. I'm in Satan's
Actually, don't have
It's
anything. Let's
uncomfortable.
move.
Okay,
Yeah,
can we move on? Let's move on.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, we are all triggered right now.
We need to get out. We need to get the fuck out of Florida.
Right. Yeah. One of my really good girlfriends lives in Florida, and I call her every day, like, girl, don't you want to move? Anywho, speaking of moving, if you can arrange to be in Austin on Sunday, I believe June 25th, consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for a live broadcast of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. Doors open at noon on Sunday, and parking is wherever you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. And let me tell you something, y'all. That lot is very, very, very tiny. I don't even know if it's a lot. It's more like a drive-through with a little area in the back. Put a carport, whatever. So anywho, so yeah, get there early is basically what I'm saying. And if you can't make it there this month, we will continue to broadcast live from the library the last Sunday of each month. So keep watching this show, the flagship show of the ACA, and our other shows, and also our website at atheist-community.org for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. And also, have you said to yourself, I really love the content of the ACA, and I wish that there was a way that I could get it all the time. I have these conversations with myself all the time. And guess what? Your wish has come true. So make sure you check out our brand new channel 24/7 AXP TV live stream. You can tune in at any time of the day to experience a constant stream of shows, clips, and specials from over 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience. Watch it or simply listen to your favorite hosts and discover some hosts that you never heard of. So you can always visit tiny.cc/AXPTV to join in the fun. Ooh. And with that being said, let us go into a step in the right direction. Step in the right direction. Yeah, step in the right direction. We're stepping in the right direction. Yeah. And I love this story. And it is coming to you from the Columbus Dispatch by Amelia Robinson, entitled Columbus Drag Queens to Nazis. Thank you very much for your hate. Protests raise big money. So this is basically what happened, guys. This is the gist of it. So in the Columbus Dispatch, it actually talks about a fundraising event whose goal was to raise $5,000, but turned into $65,000 because some neo-Nazis decided to protest it. And I am personally going to set up a fundraiser specifically for me to see if neo-Nazis protested so that I can exceed my monetary my goals. Kidding. Moving on. So during the Columbus conversation, why drag local artist Corey Williams organized a drag brunch fundraiser for LGBTQ youth center called Kaleidoscope, and the goal was $5,000. And well, the local Nazi group got a wind of it, and people wanted to have fun and raise money for a good cause by inserting their 2 cents when no one asked them to. And what ended up happening is that one of those Haiti McHaters, people not only gave to the fundraiser, they met their goals and exceeded them. And it's just such a great story. And I know that, Helen, you were really bummed at our last story, being a Floridian and all. So please go ahead and take this baton and run with it.
Yummy. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. That's so delicious. It's so beautifully delicious. Oh, a little bit of victory. And I just love that these neo-Nazi mofos were like, we're going to show up and we're going to protest and we're going to say, like, bring down the drag queens. And the community was like, F that. Here's a bunch of money. We're going to give you more and more money, which... it just gives me that little sigh of relief. Now I've had previous conversations with people that when I say that you need to have a balanced news diet, like, because there's a lot of doom and gloom. And when you hear stories like this, you're reminded that there are good people in the world, that all this BS that's going around, they're like, fuck that. And they're going to do something about it. And that's the only way this happens. And the only way you can feel inspired to do something is when you hear stories of people in your local community, or even in your locals, in your state, or other places of the country that are wherever you are in the world, that are like, we're not going to put up with this BS, and you stand up for what's right. Yeah. And the fact that the neo-Nazis ate it, and it worked so much not in their favor. It just makes me, I'm just like, you know what? I'm like, you know, there's a silver lining to this shit cloud. So, Jimmy, how do you feel about this story? I know I'm very happy.
Yeah, it's a little bittersweet. In the end, I'm happy. I'm a little depressed, though, that we still have coward neo-Nazis showing up to kind of ruin the fun. You know, my message to this group would be, one, you're failing. I mean, there was only a dozen or so of you. Nobody wants to join your cause, right? Yeah. And two, you're a bunch of cowards. You're afraid to show your faces because you don't want your community to see who you really are. And you don't want to be associated with the very cause that you claim to support. And so it's just not, it's not working in your favor. These people, LGBTQ members, wanted to raise 5,000 and they raised 65,000 because of you idiots trying to ruin the fun. I'm a little confused, right? Why does the LGBTQ community fall into the crosshairs of a white supremacist group? I don't know how that really transcribes. If you're a white supremacist group, then why hate on a group that is not of a specific race? These are people that are just looking to hate somebody. And you know,
Christian nationalism,
sure,
and
yeah,
misogyny.
okay. Yeah, Christian nationalism and racism go well together. I should remember that. You know, all that to say, while it is bittersweet, and I am ashamed, or not ashamed, but you know, a little depressed about that. You know, I like hearing the feel good story. I like the fact that you know, the gentleman speaking in the video associated with this article, Lester Singleton, stated, you know, in the 1980s when he was a young man, he never thought he'd be where he is today. And now approaching his 62nd birthday, he's been embraced by an entire community. I just think that's a wonderful thing. I want to close out, you know, my points just by asking this gang too, like, do they think that their own neo-Nazi members in prisons across America are not engaging in homosexual sex? Because I'm sure that they are. I mean, there's, you know, what do you have to say about that? I don't know. I have no problem with it. Hey, you know, sleep with who you want to sleep with, but don't start coming down on a community that, you know, makes up a large portion of your numbers, whether they want to admit it or not. So, yeah.
I mean, neo-Nazis do have some homoerotic stuff going on. So, you know, I'm just saying, you know, it's not sexy. It's just homoerotic and weird.
And also, according to the leader of the Proud Boys, he also said that they do have gay members as well.
Well,
it's all the leather. Really.
Okay, all right, listen, Ollie, I'm going to say this right now. If you are in a minority group, do not join your oppressor. Please don't do that. It's not going to end well for you. Do not join your oppressor.
I have a t-shirt that says that. Do not join your oppressor.
Yeah, don't do it. It's going to end up badly. Very bad.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic we're moving in the right direction.
Yes, we are. Talk about moving in the right direction. The Cross Examiner, or can I call you Crossy for short?
However you want. I'm the newbie, so
I'm just going to make the sign of the cross every time that you start to talk.
So yeah, I think what this made me realize is I'm old. And the reason that made me realize that is back when I was sort of becoming more and more active in the atheist movement, there was only one group I could think of that would travel distances to show up and protest at an event. And that was the Westboro Baptist Church. You may remember them. They actually traveled from Kansas to my home state of Maryland to protest my high school because it was named after Walt Whitman, a famous gay poet from the 1800s. That was enough for them to come out and protest. And I would tell my parents back then about this, and they would not believe me. Now, today, when Nazis or the Klan or the MAGA fascists come out and scream hatred at people, we just call that a Florida Tuesday, right? That's just, I guess that's one thing
with
the
a
internet
Chicago
has,
handshake.
I guess that's one thing that the internet has done for conservative consumers is they've given them a choice in their hate groups. So back then, though, the effect was always the same as what we're seeing now, what you've all pointed out, that it would draw attention to the object of their hate, and that community would gain support. I don't know if they're dumb or they're just, this gets us attention, so I don't care that I'm supporting the evil gay people by doing it. They just keep doing it. It's got to be some version of the Streisand effect, maybe. We got to come up with a name for it. But I mean, $65,000. I did the math. Is 1,300% increase over their planned $5,000. So maybe the Nazis should be selling this as a service, right? This one simple trick could increase your revenue by 1,300%. So at least Trump and the fascist Christian movement has done one service to us, and that's made them feel comfortable enough to come out, despite, as Jimmy points out, they often will wear masks. So at least we can identify who these people are. So I think to wrap up, these are the cases that are tough when you see them doing it. They're a test of your belief in the First Amendment. But unfortunately for them, we really do believe in the First Amendment. They would want to take away speech rights from others, but we fight to give them those rights. So I think that's another reason to be happy about this. Is long term, this confirms my faith in the Bill of Rights. I think everybody's talked. Do you have anything, Cynthia?
I just wanted to just say that I just love the story because it shows that not everyone is assuaged by hate. In some cases, people do more just to spite their haters. And we need more of this to combat some of the tyranny that is coming from the government entities to other marginalized groups. And I would even say to the event organizer of the drag brunch, to Corey and his supporters, I say a hearty right on. And to the neo-Nazis that decided to come out and protest this event. What are your issues with drag queens? Drag queens are fun. Drag queens are funny. Drag queens are sickening when they do lip syncs. Drag queens can help you with your wardrobe and your makeup. I get tips every week from watching RuPaul's Drag Race. And I think that a lot of us who wear makeup can as well. And they are cool people. And I always enjoyed going to a drag show. And maybe, just maybe, if you attended one, you wouldn't be so quick to protest one because you'll be too busy having fun.
Have some fun.
Have some fun.
Have some
Absolutely.
fun. Life is meant to be joyful. Have some fun.
Have some fun. And I just I was telling my partner, I said, I just got hair just so I can do this. After I make my point.
Right. Your hair flip?
Yes. My hair flip. Yes, exactly. Just like if you feel fabulous.
I do my hair slides up.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, folk, we're going to be rounding it out towards our final Strange But True. But before we do that, I just want to tell you that you too can become a member of this channel for as little as 99 cents a month. So click the join button below, and this will give you access to special chat emojis. They're kind of fun. Some of the little emojis that smile at you and thumbs up at you and dance at you and all that other great stuff. And yeah. And also, I was told by our benevolent overlords that we also have a store, if you didn't know. Matter of fact, I think that Jimmy, found the store.
Oh, I found the store.
Okay,
yeah,
very good.
Some merch.
Yeah.
Is that the logo of the flagship show?
I believe it is the logo of the flagship show of the ACA. And so you can shop because these are the last little humdingers that you can guys get. So go ahead and make sure you go to tiny.cc/merch ACA. That's tiny.cc/merch ACA. And you can get all your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. And you can also check out our other shows as well. So we're just saying this right now. Buy our shit. It's good shit.
It is very quality shit.
Yeah, look, Jimmy got on good shit. Show him shit
that way, honey.
good.
Other way.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get this.
There you go.
See, the problem was I didn't.
Don't have me messing with stuff.
The logo's
it's
too powerful of a logo. Your camera couldn't handle it.
It's too right.
Yeah.
It's just like bam up in your face. Oh goodness. Speaking of being up in your face, let's talk about let's talk about the universe and the theories that's radically in our face with this strange but true.
Strange but true.
It's all you, Jimmy.
All right, this one's for me. Cool.
Yes.
So a radical new theory about the origin of the universe may help explain our existence, written by Alexander Masters. This is a book review on Thomas Hertog's On the Origin of Time, an account of his time with Stephen Hawking and some of the theories that would go to explain the universe. I don't really. This is kind of a sneaky ploy by the author to kind of insert some other things under the guise of a book review. But I'm going to let somebody else take it away before I give my spiel on it. What do you think, Cross Examiner?
Well, I had trouble. Every once in a while, you have these experiences where you get involved in like reading a Christian apologetics book or something, or listening to a video, and it's very hard to finish. It's just so hard. And that's what I felt like reading this, because I agree that you could just, it reeked with this equivocation and, oh, well, they said this. And so that's a little gap where I can insert God. So my first problem with it is he describes it as this brand new theory. The book is new. The theory was published 20 years ago. So this is not new. It's very interesting, but all it really does is take quantum mechanics, of which I know very little, as I think it was Feynman who said, if you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. But I do know that this theory basically just says, well, if that's true, then the entire universe must obey those rules. So when the universe is created, we had all of these possibilities, all the ways the universe could get to the present. And as soon as it interacts with something, i.e. gets observed, it's going to collapse that waveform into what we have now. And this author of this article is trying to make that into some mystical, this is why we have God, this is why there's fine tuning, when in reality, it's just, he's just making this big argument about the anthropic principle. Like, oh, just like Douglas Adams says, when a puddle becomes sentient and wakes up and says, wow, what a cool hole I'm in. Wow, it's specifically made for me. It must be made for me. That's what this author is trying to do. And it's painfully obvious that he doesn't care about the actual reality or actually teaching the science. He's got an agenda. So, Helen, take it away. I'm sure you've got a lot to say on this as well.
So I want to read this quote from the article that kind of stood out to me. Unexpectedly, God is mentioned uber Alice. He looms over the shoreline of science, cavalier, provoking, flamboyant statements, a mark of the end of critical thought, not easy to dismiss. A few excellent physicists believe in him. Many have done their most extreme work, their best and worst, by trying to exclude him. Now, this is my problem with this. Is he Thomas Hurdock, the person that wrote this article, aware that science doesn't make claims it can't support? Because
it was actually Alex Masters that wrote.
Oh, did he say that? I'm sorry. That's I misquoted. I apologize. I am not a scholar. Don't take anything
we got you.
seriously.
We know what you mean.
You got my people, though. It's fine.
You're good, because I couldn't even say besieged. So go ahead.
Like, I went to college, Cynthia.
Right.
But this is the thing that, like, people, it sounds deep and it sounds profound, but it's just a proverbial skeleton, but there's nothing there. It's a nothing burger. It's like, you're trying to prop things up with like bubble gum and toothpicks, it's not going to stand. And that was really frustrating to me about this article, because I read it 3 times looking for science, like some new theoretical research about the origins of the universe, and I got bunk. And I want to warn people that opinion pieces are not science. Scientific reading is a bore. I will tell you that. I've done it. It's not, but that gets us to the closest understanding of how things work. And when people are good science educators, they're able to explain those theories to the layman in ways that are interesting and ways for them that is straightforward and easy to understand. As I'm going to quote Michael Scott, explain it to me like I'm 5.
Exactly.
And that's the goal. And this article was a lot of gobbledygook that I did not understand. And I'm hoping maybe Jimmy felt the same way, so I don't feel as dumb. Or maybe I'm onto something. Well, like, I feel like something went over my head.
You're definitely onto something. Cynthia, did you wanna
yeah, because you had
before I wrap it up?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
had like actually like real shit to say, so I'm just gonna say my fake shit, and then you go with the real shit, because
You're
I
real.
was
Your shit's real.
confused. Oh well, thank you.
You are.
Thank you. I try. So a few things. So when I was reading this article, I was actually hoping to get a more accessible breakdown of Hawking's theory. Like if you're like listening to like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Like he has a way to actually like explain things, like explain it like I'm five. So and still actually put science in it. And you can go, oh, that makes sense. Or like when I go to the planetarium and I learned about a egg-shaped planet in the Kelpian belt, which is right here in our solar system. And I was like, wow, right? But I didn't get that. I didn't get that, y'all. I was sad because first off, one of my issues that I had with this is that he brings up the multiverse. And I was like, okay, so are we talking about Marvel movies right now? I mean, like, I don't know. In a minute, I'm like, where's Tony Stark? He's about to pop out like Iron Man. And so that was my first issue. My second issue was the title. Thomas Hertog describes his collaboration with the late Stephen Hawking in searching for a solution to the ancient metaphysical problem. Emphasis on metaphysical. And I'm sorry, but why are we applying metaphysics to something that should just be physics? I don't know. I mean, granted, that metaphysics normally deals with the fundamental nature of reality, including the first principles of being existent, identity and change in space and time, cause and effect, and necessity of possibility. But I guess it is a point of personal contention because metaphysical to me is normally associated and conflated with spirituality. So, from a person who knows people who went to metaphysical churches and they talk about metaphysical stuff and, the metaphysics of God, I'm just like, shh, don't say anything else. And I think that my next issue specifically with this was the side rant about Wheeler's game. Did you all read about that? I get that he was trying to use it as a metaphor to his best to explain what Hertog meant about observation. And I personally feel if you were just going to use a metaphor without you explaining it plain with your family, and how it was a disaster. And I am the queen of digression. We already saw this on the show, but I prefer to not have that in my literature. Just this, can we stay on topic? And I'm just going to say this, and Jimmy, you can take it and give us a wrap up. All in all, I fail to find the radical new theory remarkable. And as you just pointed out, Cross Examiner, this is not a radical new theory. I mean, it's not a new theory. It came out 20 years ago, so they knew. I mean, I know my car is used, and my car is less time than this theory. So guess what? It's a used theory. It's not a new theory. And where's the radicalness about it? And I guess that's my thing. Oh, my final issue, and then Jimmy, you can take it. He kept on talking about the Catholic priest that actually debunked Einstein. Like,
yeah,
this Catholic priest like debunked Einstein's issue about the expansion of the universe. He actually pointed out that it does expand, and Einstein said, no, it's fixed. And so we know that he was wrong. Therefore, God. Take that, atheists, and take this, Jimmy.
Well, I don't even know why I'm on the show now.
There we go. We proved God.
There we go. Bye, y'all.
Yeah, we're all unemployed now.
Yeah.
So,
no more atheist money.
I gotta get my shirt back.
Right. Give your shirt back.
Cross Examiner, you said you have a quick thing you wanted to say, and then I'm gonna beat this guy up while I wrap up this show.
Okay. Yeah, I think the sentiment I had after finishing it is, this is why scientists should never use the word God when they describe what their work is. The famous misunderstood quote by Einstein of God doesn't play dice with the universe, when he didn't like the idea of quantum mechanics and it was blowing his mind. And that's been taken out of a context for decades ever since, and will be. Einstein believed in God, and Hawking references God in a sort of the complexity of the universe type. These people who write these articles dishonestly will take those quotes and do what we see in this article, make it about their God instead of about the physics. Hertog made it very clear. His quote was, "Quantum mechanics forbids a single history." That's it. That's the only thing that really this theory says, is if you take quantum mechanics, if every particle has to have this probabilistic history, then the universe has a probabilistic history. And it's only when we start to come to the present that we can say, okay, we collapse the waveform and we say, this is how we got here. It's at its core simple. I don't understand everything, but when you read Hertog's writing, when you read Hawking's writing, they do make it simple. This guy intentionally made it complex. Back to you, Jimmy.
So this is consistent with what Christians or religious individuals who want to challenge scientific theories will do. They will find a way to sink their hooks in, and then they will ride the coattails until they have an opening to introduce their theory. So not only did I read a few other articles by Alexander Masters, where he uses the same examples of the Catholic priest or of other people and cherry picks them to kind of continue to make his point. My Kindle app would only give me about 100 pages of this book. So I read, I don't know, like 75 of them. I tried to scan through them real quick. Stephen Hawking doesn't mention God. Stephen Hawking says that he can understand why people might consider the universe God-like if you consider the chaos in which it started and then the order in how it currently exists. So in taking those words out of context, we have Alexander Masters, who comes and injects his own theories, using God to kind of create an equality between creationism and the scientific theories that are supported by evidence. And that's all this book review is. So it starts off kind of talking about a lot of assumptions and conditions about the universe, and tries to place creationism equally among different scientific theories that explain how we got to where we are. And this kind of reminds me of those episodes on maybe news shows or interviews where you have the biochemist and the atheist and the biologist, and then you have the priest, all sitting at the same table in their garb. And these people have to look at this priest at eye level as if he's accomplished the kind of work and research and commitment that they have. And they have to treat him with some kind of sincerity. And I think that's what Alexander Masters is doing. Somebody who has a Christian agenda, who saw that Stephen Hawking used the word God, and there's his opening to go and put his own agenda to the test and see if it sticks. It's pretty consistent across all of his work. I would encourage others to kind of look more into it, but this is a common tactic I think that we see a lot. And so that's kind of where I came out. I didn't really find any shocking new theory. I think I saw somebody who was desperate to include God in science, and he fell short, didn't meet the mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Helen, did you have a couple more points that you want to bring?
Yeah. This kind of, so as the former pagan on the panel, there is a theory. Notice I'm using my air quotes, people. Theory that magic comes from like this consciousness or energy that's in the universe, and this is what this reminded me of. That there's some kind of energy that has brought forth the universe, and there's some kind of. He didn't use the word intelligence, but I got that vibe. It's the metaphysical of the gaps argument.
Yep.
And I got that feeling again because I was like, oh, somebody's trying to put things in that they don't understand, so it'll make sense. And I'm not being critical, and that's the thing that scares me about when people write these opinion pieces, because they, instead of just doing an interview and asking the person questions or going through the book with like a critical mind, and then like maybe get a committee together to talk about the book and get some feedback on it and that sort of thing. That didn't happen here. He was just like, okay, I think this makes sense, and I'm going to put my own spin on it as a writer. And and try to make the average person think that I'm saying profound things, and it isn't. So I want just to stress the audience that just because something sounds good doesn't mean it is good, and I think that's something that we have to be aware of.
Yeah.
So, that was my major concern with this.
Yeah, and just even going back to your point, Helen, about about the emergence of the universe being caused by a collective consciousness. It that makes me all weirded out, because we don't have any evidence that the consciousness is a part of is away from our brain. This is a property of our mind, and our mind is a property of our brain. So because when we out, the consciousness is too. And you know how I know that? Because last time I checked, dead people don't talk. So and I'm just like afraid that this is something that we're trying to do, like some weird imbuing metaphysical explanation for a radical theory, which really is not even a theory. It's more so like an opinion because Jesus. At least that's what I got from it. Yes, the Jeebus,
Case closed.
Yeah, case closed. You know what? The cross-examiner, I'm going to give you 1 minute to bang your gavel.
Okay.
Until we break it.
Yeah, I think everybody is right on the mark. I could say that there are Christians who do it the right way. This guy's doing it the wrong way. I'm going to start with my conclusion and work to the beginning. But for example, my current series I'm focusing on my podcast is all about faith healing. And part of what I investigate is, does prayer actually work? Well, there's this organization you may have heard of called the Templeton Foundation, a Christian organization that sponsored the largest study on prayer. You know what they did? Hands off. We want to know. They do it right. They just looking for handprints of God. But they ran the study, and you know what the study showed? Not effective. And they were honest about it. Juxtapose that against this author or the people at Answers in Genesis.
Oh my God.
They've got an agenda. I'm sorry. Trigger warning. Trigger warning.
I've been watching some AIG lately on some other podcasts, and I need exorcism.
I just got heartburn.
I apologize. That was a rookie mistake. Again, let's juxtapose it against somebody else. But you get my point. This guy in this article is doing that. He's starting at his conclusion, working backwards, instead of the honest way of like, okay, let's work forward, and if I have to play God of the gaps, I will. That's the honest way of approaching it.
And what else is honest, guys? Let me tell you what's honest. What's honest is joining our fan social media outlets. That's right. You can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the Atheist Community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And we value your feedback. So tell us what you like. Like, I like that. The drag brunch actually brought in $65,000 instead of $5,000 because of those stupid neo-Nazis. Or you can tell us what you don't like, which is Florida and Texas, and anything and everything in between. And you can put those in the comments below, or you can email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. And also visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org on the latest of what's been happening. And feel free to contact the ACA at tv@atheist-community.org. And let me tell you guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having all of you on. Helen, thank you, babe, for doing your thing. Jimmy, oh my goodness, this has been so much fun. Don't you agree?
Oh my goodness, I had so much fun. The name of tonight's episode should just be called Triggered. I mean, these are some topics. These are some topics.
Yeah.
Everybody do some self-care, light some candles, get a hot bath, get a glass of wine, everything will be okay.
Oh my gosh, I know, because like the crosses ever said, hey, answers to Genesis. I was like, whoa.
I need an emotional support animal.
right. Where's the bigger truck? And speaking of the cross examiner, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I hope this is one of many. You will always hear me say we need a lawyer on the show. And make sure, guys, you check out the Cross Examiner's podcast. You can actually reach all of his podcasts at thecrossexaminer.net. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for actually watching us. And if you're listening to us on podcast form, thank you for listening to us. Until we see you or hear you or you hear us next time, bye-bye.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.